Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to some news coming from ESPN. Adrian Wojnarowski, one of the most known insiders in the NBA, he has went on a podcast and he talked about Kawhi Leonard and his situation in Toronto in a great deal. Before we get into anything, I'll paraphrase some of the things that he said on that podcast. He mentioned how he does think the Raptors have made some progress with Kawhi Leonard, playing well, and they've put themselves in a position to re-sign him in the summer. He brought up the points of how when the trade initially happened, there wasn't much expectations from the Kawhi's camp for a future with the organization, but now there's certainly some perspectives. He does think that the Raptors are in the running. He talked about how the Raptors are selling a winning culture and the ability to make the most money, and that could be very intriguing for Kawhi Leonard. Now, I didn't really want to react to this because all the Kawhi Leonard news that's happened throughout the season, we've kind of stayed away from it because I still hold the opinion that what happens in the postseason, how the Toronto Raptors perform throughout this postseason stretch is going to be the biggest factor in terms of Kawhi Leonard's decision going forward with the organization. And my opinion on that hasn't changed, despite the differing reports that come out. But a lot of you guys have been asking to make a video on it to give my reaction to it, this Woj report, because there hasn't been much positive from the established insiders amongst the NBA. A lot of them have been saying that nothing's really changed from the beginning of the season, and Kawhi's probably going to leave at the end of the season. That's been the common sentiment amongst people that are reporting on the situation. And personally, I thought that if the Raptors perform in the playoffs, I think he'll stay. If the Raptors don't perform in the playoffs, he'll probably leave. My sentiment, as I previously iterated, hasn't changed. And now that there's a positive report, more and more people are kind of clinging on to it. And people are kind of forgetting that Woj, about a month ago, he said he doesn't see Kawhi Leonard leaving, and people were bagging on Woj and his sources. So now that we get some positive news about Kawhi Leonard potentially remaining with the Toronto Raptors from established guy and inside a league insider, I'm not going to overreact. The Raptors have done everything right throughout this whole season. They built a team that's a win-now team around Kawhi while not sacrificing a lot of their future. Yes, we did trade DeLon and JV, but Marc Gasol was the right move. I think a lot of people, after seeing what Marc Gasol has provided for the Toronto Raptors, not a lot of people are disagreeing with that trade as of right now. Masai has shown he's willing to take risks. He's willing to throw it all in the table. He brought in guys like Lin, who may not have worked out necessarily, but he's going after the big names, and the Raptors can attract some of the better players off the buyout market in these sorts of areas. So winning-wise, I think the Raptors have done a lot for showing Kawhi Leonard that they're a winning organization, despite the fact the role players have kind of struggled in the playoffs, but Game 5 they really bounced back, so hopefully that will carry through for the rest of the postseason. And if we want to talk about the team itself, aside from the fact that the Toronto Raptors are an amazing basketball team, the culture around Toronto basketball has been very good. The fan base is ridiculous. Kawhi's even mentioned how blown away he's been by the Toronto Raptors fans, so that's always a good thing to hear from a guy that you're intriguing to stay in your city. So the fans, they've been doing a good job. The Toronto Raptors chemistry, it seems as if everyone gets along. Obviously, we've talked how he's close friends with Danny Green. We brought his best friend from San Antonio into the roster. We hired one of his buddies to be his on the coaching staff, who's an established guy throughout the league. It's not like we just gave some rando position. He's a solid coach. And it seems as if he's formed bonds with other Raptors players. Norman Powell, he's the guy from San Diego who him and Kawhi have had a relationship in the past, so that's pretty cool that they're, meshing and bonding. OG Anunoby's kind of the understudy to Kawhi Leonard. I know he's had an underwhelming season for a lot of off-the-court factors, a lot of off-the-court issues, but he says how he's impressed with OG Anunoby, and he's looking to really take him under his wing this summer, which that's pretty exciting that he's talking about the summer. Whether he stays or not, he's looking to mentor OG Anunoby, which whether or not he stays, that's going to be great for OG and his progress going forward, because he's going to be a Toronto Raptor for a long time, in my opinion. And Kawhi Leonard has been very complimentary of Kyle Lowry's game, and a lot of people around the league kind of trash on Kyle Lowry because he has these objectively poor box score numbers for an all-star. There are games where Kyle Lowry, he needs to score more points, and we talk about on every podcast how he's performing in each game, and sometimes Kyle Lowry has a tendency to not score as much as he should for the Toronto Raptors team to win. He's sometimes not as aggressive as he needs to be. That's the one issue about Kyle Lowry, but the rest of his game is phenomenal. The rest of his game is an all-star level, even at this point in his career, and Kawhi Leonard's been very complimentary of how Kyle Lowry's the leader of this team. He's the engine that makes everything go, and that hasn't changed. So the fact that there's an established dynamic, a chemistry amongst the team, where Kawhi's pretty complimentary of, that's an encouraging thing from a fan, from an outsider's perspective. Masai Ujiri, him and Nick Nurse, the front office, have made the decision. They're willing to let Kawhi rest throughout the regular season. to be healthy, because he's coming off that year where he was out, he only played 9 games. And speaking of someone that has experienced a leg injury, I tore my ACL, lateral meniscus, and medial meniscus, all of the D Rose injuries at once in my right knee. I was out for a year, and you're worried. You're worried about getting back on the court, getting back to, just moving around, not getting injured again. So I can completely relate to Kawhi's kind of tentativeness in terms of wanting to be on the court and wanting to go full throttle 24/7. You want to make sure you recover fully from those sorts of injuries because you don't want them to happen again. And the Raptors have managed that, I think, better than they possibly could have. And the fact that the Raptors were winning when Kawhi rested, that luxury for Kawhi to be on a team where he doesn't need to play all the games and still have a really strong record in their conference, I think that's very appealing to a guy the magnitude of Kawhi Leonard. And there's so many things we can get into about Kawhi, why he should stay, why he should not. And when the postseason's over, this is going to be really the main thing we're talking about for a solid month stretch until July 1st after the postseason. So I don't want to be redundant on any of my points. We've talked about Kawhi. We briefly brought it up throughout the regular season. And despite the fact Woj has come out with this report, or, well, I guess he's spoken on it and has been positive, my opinion still hasn't changed. The same way it hasn't changed when people were reporting saying that there was no chance he resigns. I think the Kawhi Leonard's decision will be made in the postseason. Yes, LA is attractive. That's probably where he was desired to be going into the beginning of the season, but the fact that the Raptors have managed things so perfectly, in my opinion, I think that kind of offsets the desire to be in LA. And if they're a winning team, if they don't flame out in the playoffs, if we don't collapse against the Sixers and we compete against the Bucks and hopefully make the finals, then I think he'll stay. I think that's still my opinion, but if things go horribly wrong in the postseason, then it'll leave a bad taste in his mouth, and I could see him leaving. But there's a lot of things that could go into it. Certainly, let me know what you guys think about this Kawhi Leonard news. I will say it's encouraging. It's more encouraging to hear positive things coming out from reporters than negative things, especially this time of year, but I don't think it's anything we should run away with. We're in a postseason, and we need to focus on winning this Game 6 tomorrow, because this is going to be a huge game for the Toronto Raptors. But, it's an exciting time as a Raptor fan. We're living through the pinnacle of Raptors basketball. So to stay tuned on it, check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. For people that don't know, we're on all podcasting platforms now. So if you want to hear us on iTunes, on Spotify, or anything like that, you can check us out on there. We have a lot of cool stuff coming. We're continuing to cover anything that comes out around the Toronto Raptors. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.